Perhaps more than any other theme song to a sitcom that we've covered, I think this one conveys that you're about to hear three sad middle-aged guys talk. This is Bootu Boys, a TV show podcast. I'm Brian Vaughn. We're talking about Taxi. Spencer Hendricks is going to do that too.
Yep, I have no choice. I'm here for that exact thing.
Van Lee, I'm not giving you any options either.
It's the 70s, so I'm on a lot of drugs.
Yeah, and you've been talking about Jimmy Carter a lot lately.
I thought you were going to go Jimi Hendrix and make me cool. Instead, you're like, no, Jimmy Carter's he's talking about.
That's what people like to do. They like to get in a bunch of drugs and talk about Jimmy Carter.
All the time. And you've been talking about the Pirates, the We Are Family Pirates.
Yeah, sure.
What are some other things you might be talking about?
Probably that time that Jimmy Carter was in that boat and he claimed that a rabbit was coming to get him. He was like on a river, lake or something or other. But rabbits don't swim. But then Jimmy Carter, he was like, but tell you, I saw this rabbit and it did swim and I beat it with an oar. And he did.
Wow. I'm not surprised that you had a Jimmy Carter story that just pull out like that. Was he the one that did the Peanuts?
Peanut Farm.
Yeah.
In fact, when he became president, he didn't give away his peanut farm. He gave it to someone else, essentially, and then could take it over after the presidency, because back then there was this thing where, like, we don't want our presidents to profit off of their position. And so he basically sold his peanut farm. By the time he got it back, whoever he'd given it to or sold it or whatever had run it to the ground, and he ended up actually having to sell it. Never got it back.
I was checking my notes here, and it says later in American history, if you're president, you can own and profit off anything and commit any crime you want.
You can sell state secrets while your son somehow gets a $2 billion contract with Saudi Arabia, despite the fact that he has no actual work in the field he's in.
But we made this fucking Mr. Rogers president sell his peanuts?
Yep, that's right.
Ugh.
Can you sell government secrets?
What about corporate and government secrets? Secret government, corporate secrets.
Yeah, I was going to say, what about their secret?
Ooh, that was quite an intro there.
Oh, boy. We're going to be talking about Taxi, but first I want to talk about entertainment that has taxi cabs in it. Is that
like
okay
a lot
with you
of
guys?
them? Sure.
In a segment I call...
Did you just say, is there a lot of them?
Yeah, like what? Is there just
More
like a
than,
lot of taxi-related entertainment?
More than you'd think. So it's time for our usual segment, Hailing Entertainment, cabs and cab drivers from film and television history.
See, I knew it. I knew we were going to do Hailing Entertainment, cabs and cab drivers from human history, like we often do. Did I get it right?
You were real close.
Okay.
Probably we haven't done it in a few episodes. That's why you weren't dead on. Yeah.
Remember how we wanted to call the podcast that at first?
At the very first, but we decided it'd be better as a segment because it's not, this is going to come as a surprise to listeners. It's not that catchy. Doesn't roll off the tongue.
We did, however, know that we could get to 150 plus episodes on just that subject.
For
we
sure.
knew that was out there.
We're going to get a couple minutes on it at least, because what I want you guys to do, I'm going to give you guys brief synopses of cab-centric entertainments from American media, okay?
All right.
First thing you're going to do is tell me whether this movie or series I present you with is real or fake. And if it's real, I want you guys to guess what its Rotten Tomatoes score is.
Okay.
If you win, we'll keep doing the episode. If you lose, we also will.
We all die.
And you can work together, because this is more just a stupid thing we're doing than a real game. As you know from when we've done the segment before.
Yeah, precisely. We're doing it the way we always do it.
We'll start out with one you might know, what you guys might know.
As we play Cab Drivers, the American dream of which there are cabs in movies.
Right.
Is that what was right?
That time you nailed it.
Okay. Spencer, you say it.
Hailing Entertainment.
Okay.
Taxis.
Also nailed it.
Taxis.
Subcolon. Stuff and other stuff.
Driving and Crying. The alternate name for Taxi, the show. Okay. In the 1976 Martin Scorsese classic Taxi Driver, Robert De Niro would like to know if you were talking to him or not. Is that real or fake, that movie?
That one's real. I didn't do the bit I was going to do, which was I was going to be like, oh, I'm so glad to be here to talk about Taxi. I really want to discuss, someone who watches a movie and then identifies with the hero.
I really want to discuss the first incel.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't do that, so that's real.
That's real.
Good movie.
Yeah, it is real. What do you think its Rotten Tomatoes score is?
95.
Wait. Are we talking audience score?
We're talking only critic scores.
Okay, critical score.
This does include reviews from the time.
Yeah, critical score. It's got, from the time, I don't think they liked it as much. So I'm going to say 75.
Oh, okay.
89.
Okay, Poster Spencer.
Okay.
I should have stuck with my first one, 90. And then I was like, wait, no, everyone loves it, 95.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. If this were Joker, if we were discussing that, it'd be 150 because it's so much better.
Because Joker is like, what if Taxi Drivers suck shit?
What if we took taxi driver and then put it in the biggest media conglomerate thing in the world because no one will watch anything unless it stars a superhero.
And then everything compelling about it, we'll just suck that out of there. Get rid of it. No more. Don't make it interesting. Don't make it gritty. Okay. A cab driver and a reckless detective, played by Queen Latifah and Jimmy Fallon, respectively, team up to solve a crime involving a garbage collector's wife in 2004's Taxi. Is that real or fake?
I actually think this is real.
It could be.
I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know the plot.
By gum, it could be.
By gum?
I think it's real.
Okay, we're going real.
You guys got me butt good. It's real. Now, what do you think that thing's Rotten Tomatoes score is?
Ooh.
Critics
40,
only.
46.
You're being generous. 10.
It's 9.
Whoa.
Really?
Everyone hated the fuck out of it.
Well, yeah, that's probably
I was
fair.
being facetious and I overshot it?
You overshot it by a point somehow.
But you just about nailed it on the bright side.
I mean, that's what I think about it.
I was thinking there's no way Jimmy Fallon did that. And then I remembered that was around the time he did that fever pitch thing. And
Yeah.
it was like, okay, yeah, he was doing stuff.
Friend of the podcast, Justin Hughes, loves that movie.
Because it's stupid.
Thought you were going to say friend of the podcast, Jimmy Fallon.
Oh,
He
no.
might be. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know that he's not a listener.
I don't know what he does with his spare time.
don't they ever play any games where they have celebrities throw a ping pong ball?
Okay, so like we've been the best of friends, right? Celebrity that I'm talking to right now. Like, it's so funny.
You do like me, right? I'm in deep need of validation.
Kiss me so hard.
Okay. 1982's Cosmic Cab
Ooh, that's in space.
features a wayward space cabbie named Zingkorg, who becomes the unwitting captain of a warship in a battle to save his people. Guess there's never a bad time to become a hero, am I right, guys? Is that real or fake?
The name sold it that it's not. Zorb or whatever, that was a Brian name.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go with
Okay,
that
that's
one.
not real, and so as such was not reviewed by major critics.
90, which is what that would be.
100.
Really high.
Famed art house director Jim Jarmusch's Night on Earth from 1991 features cab drivers from all over the US and Europe navigating memorable fares. What does the night have in store for memorable characters such as Winona Ryder's Corky or Giancarlo Esposito's Yo-Yo?
That's pretty cool.
Is that real or fake?
That sounds kind of real to me.
It does.
sound like
It
an
does
art
sound
house
real.
film.
Yeah.
It's real and I want to watch it.
Yeah, I'm
I'd
interested
love
in
to
this.
see Winona Ryder is a cab driver.
Also,
Let's see it.
Giancarlo Esposito when he's like 20.
Well, that's it, because I know I've seen him in things, but really until Breaking Bad, I didn't know who he was.
Same here. I didn't have a name to put to the face, so
Now I
it
see
kind
him
of
all the time.
evaporated. Yeah, he's everywhere
I'm
now.
like, oh, that's Moff Gideon.
So what did that get on Rotten Tomatoes? What did the critics
I'm going to say like,
Art house pretty high, right?
yeah, I'm going to say like 78.
I buy that. We'll go 75, so we're right in that range.
76.
Oh,
you guys pretty
man.
much drilled that. An ex-cop played by David Morse has to reset his life as a Philadelphia cab driver after getting booted from the force in this early 2000s CBS series called Hack.
I've got to say that sounds
The thing
real.
is, he's also a vigilante at night.
I think that sounds very possible. David Morse would totally do something like that.
The vigilante thing kind of made me come back to earth and say maybe not.
Maybe
but
not.
I was leaning yes initially, so your confidence leads me to agree and say yes, it's real.
It's real. What did the Rotten Tomatoes folks think of this?
Do like let's do like a 38. I'll go a little lower since I overshot the last bad one.
I was thinking 55, so we split the difference to say 42.
20.
These bad ones are really bad.
Yeah, these bad ones, people hate this shit.
This was a TV show?
Yeah, on CBS.
I wonder how long it lasted.
2 seasons, I think.
More than I would have guessed.
Yeah. Okay, well, Melanie Griffith is almost done with her shift when she picks up a potentially dangerous client in 1989's Fatal Fare. Is the well-dressed man in her back seat the business executive he claims, or is he harboring a deep, dark secret? Is that real or fake?
My instinct was no, fake.
Okay, I'll go with that. I don't know. If it's a fake one, he played it real safe to fool us. But
I think that's precisely what
yeah,
it
it could
is.
be. I'm willing to go with that.
It is fake. And the exercise here was I was really excited about putting together, like, what I did is I thought of the year 1989. I was like, what would you do with a cab movie if you were making a movie?
And that fits the era. That fits precisely what it
Yeah.
is. It's sexy. You've got Melanie Griffith there, but also it's not. And you've got this suspense kind of thing going on with who is
Because
this
you're in that
businessman.
thriller era, kind of, which it's kind of fun to do, weirdly, to think about an era of movies and be like, what were they doing? I'll make one up. Did I make up this, though? Eli Roth's checkered past, because checkered cabs, 2007, tells the story of Mickey, played by MC Gainey, an aging cab driver who hasn't always used his vehicle solely for transportation.
What else does he use it
When
for?
an intoxicated trio of college students, including Chris Pine in an early role, find out his secret, will they make it out of his cab alive?
It sounds awesome.
Yeah, it does, which is why it's not real. MC Gainey, come on.
Yeah.
Well, now I could make the argument that because it's MC Gainey, Brian picked it. But this is too niche of a subject, the cab driver thing, that I think he made it up.
I can go with that.
I did make it up. It sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I like throwing Chris Pine in there too.
Mm-hmm. Eli Roth would make it a little too obvious, though, I think. They should have picked a different fake director. So again, no critics reviewed my mind. And we have one more before we start talking about the show we're actually talking about, and that is this one. Mel Gibson plays an ultra-paranoid cab driver who turns out to be right about everything, despite having no concrete evidence, in Richard Donner's 1997 thriller Conspiracy Theory. Is this real or Mel Gibson's fantasy?
I remember that movie, but I didn't remember he was a cab driver.
Maybe that's not the focus of it, and it just happened to be a bit about it.
I'm not doing any tricks like that.
Okay, yeah, so that's real, because I remember seeing that on TV a little bit.
That's real, and I have seen it. What did the people on Rotten Tomatoes think about this thing?
Mel Gibson, 97
I'll really
movie.
quickly tell you what I thought about it when I was 12 or 13 or whatever.
You loved it.
I thought it was pretty good.
I remember being like, this is fun. This is interesting. I would say maybe average. Like, let's go like 54.
I'd say a little higher than that. Probably big budget, so 68.
57. But you guys, again, you got the general gist.
If you know
really on
Tomatoes.
all of these. That's our final one. So until next time, when we return to Healing Entertainment, cabs and cab drivers from film and television history, this is it for the segment.
I wanted to make a brief mention here towards the end of this segment. I don't think there's going to be a better spot to put this in. I have a taxi movie that I thought of when I watched this, and there's just one. It's that one where Jamie Foxx rides around with gray-haired Tom Cruise for a couple hours
Collateral.
while Tom Cruise kills some people.
That movie's good.
That's it. That's my taxi movie.
I never saw it, but it looked interesting.
Do you have a taxi movie that you do remember?
No, can't say I do.
There's not that many.
Yeah, no, I guess not. All I could think of was that Mel Gibson movie where he was it's Patrick Swayze I'm thinking of. I think it's Black Dog, where he's a trucker who transports goods or whatever.
Boy, they had the same haircut at that time.
They did. And Patrick Swayze decides he wants out of the racket. He's got a wife and kid at home. And he wants to be with them. And, he's been transporting stolen or illegal goods.
Of course he has.
But then someone kidnaps his wife and forces him to do one last job transporting something like guns across the country. It was Meatloaf, by the way. He was a bad guy.
Oh, I like this.
But then it turns out the FBI is in on this. And they know something's going down. So they send their secret agent undercover. And it turns out that actor who plays that FBI agent is Randy Travis, noted country music singer. It is a wild hour and a half. You should go watch it.
It has Randy Travis and Meatloaf in it. Huh.
Meatloaf is hamming it up as the villain. Randy Travis is drunk. Patrick Swayze's Patrick Swayze. It's great. Black Dog.
I would have thought you'd want someone in the cast to maybe tie the shit down. It feels like that thing's going to go off the rails immediately.
No, and it did.
I was also imagining you like with the Mel Gibson thing being like, wait, that's Braveheart. Never mind. Like that was going to be a taxi movie.
The taxi episode we're covering today is called The Great Race. It's season 2, episode 8. Alex and Louie get in a cab battle. But that's not how it starts. We start off with the credits again, and we're all going to die one day, is the general feeling that I had while watching the credits once again.
Bummer.
Then the episode starts and we hear like a disco tinge song kind of playing as we go into the Sunshine Cab Company. It was a real jarring transition from the theme. Louie descends his staircase. He's got a handful of papers, and he's yelling at everybody about how little money they're bringing in. He specifically calls out Elaine and Tony's totals, and then starts bragging about how he was the best cab driver they ever had, in a very Louie move. Tony cuts him off, but Louie tries to continue anyway.
Well, please.
What, are you embarrassed, Manta? You should be ashamed to be in the same garage with me.
I'm ashamed to be in the same species with you.
And this is multiple times in this episode, because Judd Hirsch does it later, where people infer that Louie just is not a human being. Another thing that I like that's kind of implicit in Louie is everybody can give him shit back and he doesn't ever do anything about it, no matter how, loud his bark is.
Yeah, and he's a willing villain. Like he doesn't, he doesn't mind, and he stays kind of like in his relatively harmless act. So it seems like he's not afraid to play the part, but he's not like truly bad.
The character also, I didn't mention this last episode, he lives with his mom and tries to take care of her, and she's not always doing well. But she's also awful. Like, you can kind of see where he got it from. And his mom was played by Danny DeVito's mom.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And Rhea Perlman shows up in a few episodes, right?
Well, I think she even plays his love interest, and they were married. So the whole DeVito family basically was in this show. Louie says, look, we need drivers, not a bunch of fucking Jan Murrays. Which, upon hearing that, I said, who is that?
Yeah, what is this?
And it turns out, think of a 50s person. A 50s man. That's what he is.
Yeah, he's a comedian, apparently.
Sorta. That's what he claims to be, yeah.
Well, in searching for who the fuck this was, because I just, much like you, sat down and said, huh, whenever they said this, I found this thing, and it's a clip. I'm going to play it for you. It's a clip of Mr. Jan Murray doing his, and I do air quotes here, comedy on something called George Slatter's Just for Laughs.
He's supposed to be a guy that your whole family can appreciate, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, this took place in 1978, so he'd actually been around for a bit. He was a 50s guy, but he's still doing comedy in the 70s.
So
I think through the 80s.
That's a year before this episode.
For some reason, he was introduced on the stage in this show, this George Slattery show, by Tommy Lasorda, who's wearing full Dodgers regalia. He's in his manager outfit.
Tommy Lasorda.
It's very weird. But anyway, this is an example of Jan Murray's comedy.
But I didn't come here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to talk to you about heartburn. I want to discuss a little subject that can create heartburn, can cause heartburn, and that subject is marriage. Do you realize it is more difficult to get a driver's license than it is to get a marriage license? They don't even give you an eye test to get married. Perhaps that explains all the ugly couples you see nowadays.
You see, it's funny because ugly people exist.
The thing is, you see these people out there, they don't all look good, do they?
He was kind of a whiz-bang comedian. Like he
hosted a lot of game shows. He's that
definitely.
kind of guy.
Well, I have another clip from that same thing. This happens at the very end of his little stand-up set. And this is him discussing aging, getting old.
You should know.
You heard about Nahan's Clinic, sir? All the rich old millionaires from all over the world go there, and they give them these injections. It's the placenta of unborn sheep. I mean, that's what they do. I swear, they take the placenta of unborn sheep, they take these little old guys, they give them 7, 8 injections. You see 90-year-old men chasing young dames. They forget why, but they're running, they're going, they're looking. Well, I'm not going to heck with them. Ain't nobody going to inject me with the placenta of unborn sheep. I don't think it's good. I think it's bad, and I'm not going.
I take it back. This guy's hilarious.
He made a multifaceted joke.
Yep.
It actually just sounds like an old man ranting. Oh, the placenta's a sheep and injected in.
And I love that the character of Louie, and this is a bunch of comedy writers thinking of this stuff.
Right.
That the character of Louie is so uncultured that he's like, this is a comedian that comes to mind.
Having seen that, though, it does make me want to watch like stand-up sets from the 70s by lesser-known comedians just to see what it would be like.
Actually, that sounds really interesting. It wouldn't be funny at all, but it would be fascinating.
It would be this.
I'm not even familiar with hardly any. The only ones I've seen are a couple of the really famous ones.
Like Red Fox or...
Yeah,
wait, that's not right.
I
Red
saw
Skelton.
with my cousin Brent, I once watched a George Carlin special.
Right.
I've seen a Bob Newhart special that I still think is funny.
I want to get deep in the dregs. I want to find Jan Murray and other white guy names.
Jan Murray just at a club. I bet he's super dirty. And he's like, yeah, you ever fuck anybody underwater in a closet? And what? Jan Murray, what are you talking about?
Sheep placenta.
I'm on a lot of drugs. I'm only 25 while I'm talking like this. He's probably like 55 on those clips.
Yeah.
He sounds like a lot of people of that time period. Like he sounds like someone who was dead pretty soon after.
No, I was dead during.
I mean, when did Jan Murray die? Let's assume like pretty close to that act.
I'll look it up, but yeah, my guess would be 1984.
He didn't see the 90s.
He might not have seen us being born. It's really hard to tell. When I first heard Danny DeVito say Jan Murray, also, for whatever the reason, I think an obvious reason, I expected it to be a woman who was for some reason I thought in a sitcom or something. I thought it was like a contemporary joke, like a 70s sitcom.
What a weird joke.
Yeah, I really like it.
I just went right over my head and I didn't think anything of it.
Jan Murray definitely did watch us be born and turn 21.
Whoa!
And other life events because he died in 2006.
at
Good
the
for
age
him.
of 134.
1916, so 90. That's nuts.
Wow. Good job, I guess.
Good job.
Good job, Dan Murray.
You survived.
Yeah, I hope he hears me from the corpse grave. We could necromance him. Nah, we got to use it
Not
on
worth
somebody
it.
better.
If they didn't do it at that hospital when he was dying.
Yeah, that was their chance. They could freeze him. After talking about Jan Murray, Louie reminds everyone, I could outbook any of you still, even now at age 33. Bobby thinks Louie is full of shit, and he's like, look, there's going to be a one-on-one showdown, and it's going to be with Alex, though, because I'm not very good at this. Bobby says Louie needs to shut up if he doesn't accept the challenge with Alex, too. I mean, you can't just boast and not back it up. And during this, Bobby is pointing his index finger in Louie's face because his arm at his hip is about Louie's face level. And Danny DeVito proceeds to, with the very angry face, bite Jeff Conaway's finger. And actually, he does bite it. At first, he kind of misses it, and then he goes in and gets the rest of it.
He gets a hold of it. And you know what? I bet Danny DeVito could absolutely rip through a finger.
Yeah.
If he wanted to. He's got strong teeth. He's probably got the jaw strength of a T-Rex. Like, he could do some damage.
And this is an actual thing with me. If someone points at me and gets their finger too close to me, I get really anxious.
You bite him.
I bite them. Yeah, I'll eat it right off. Plus, I get confused. I'm like, what if it's a hot dog?
That was one of the only times at a job that I actually could feel myself lose my temper when I had it was just an older guy who was mad. I worked at an old person's home, and he was mad about something we didn't do for his mom. And he put his finger in my face, and I seriously saw red. And I'm usually quite calm, but that was one thing where it was just like, I cannot deal with this.
It's like they really have invaded your personal space.
It's aggressive and just, don't do that.
a horrible thing.
Don't point at people's faces. Don't whistle at people. Just don't do this shit.
Imagine how you would treat a dog and then how you would treat a human, and then go ahead and treat him like a human. Actually treat your dog better, too.
Correct.
Well, Alex tells Louie, I don't want to do this competition. It's taken me a long time to get over being really competitive. He used to have a gambling problem in the show. And he doesn't want some big cab battle messing all of that up. And Louie seems to respect that very briefly before doing a lot of chicken noises and hopping back up into his safety cage so that no one can get mad at him.
Like the cage, the coop.
Do you think Alex has like an alter ego when he's in his gambling phase?
Maybe like a Alex K or something.
I couldn't help it.
Yeah, he can't get away from the tables, and even though like he's done, he solved what he came there to do.
Right.
All right, this is weird because before we recorded the podcast, I also made a Bones reference today. I don't know what's happening to me.
Wow.
You remember you were there. I said, just like the Gravedigger.
Oh, yeah, you did.
It's happened. I think we all knew at some point Bones would take over.
Well,
if we did.
we secretly love it, so not so secretly now. So all this chicken stuff is going on, and we've seen this 1,000 times. I don't really care about it. But what I do like here is Jeff really egging on Louie and smiling and nodding while Louie's doing the chicken thing to mock Alex. This does bait Alex into the challenge, and Alex is now fired up, and he says, we're not waiting until tomorrow. We will do the cab battle tonight. Everybody's adrenalized, and they're throwing out bets. Tony puts down $100, which is probably like $350 or some shit, on Alex. Louie says, I will cover that, and as other cabbies all start to line up, he says, I'll cover all of these bets. I don't give a shit. I'm that confident that I will beat Judd Hirsch at cab driving. Louie and Alex start getting ready for the cab battle in a segment that I like more than I should because they're putting on ripped up leather jackets that have actual like gashes in them. And Louie has a little cabbie hat with buttons on it and a white scarf.
Mm-hmm. He gets into the role.
He gets full ass into it. It's pretty funny. I like it.
I'm assuming those outfits are supposed to have special meaning, like those for his prime taxi driver days.
Yes, definitely. And he puts them on so proudly.
Put on my driving pants. Now you're in for it.
Alex and Louie confirm there are no rules, just whoever brings the most money in. Elaine adds, I really wish I could bet on you too, Alex. I know you're going to win, but rent's coming up. I am broke. This is also refreshing just in general of 70s sitcoms. People had consistent financial problems. In modern sitcoms, everyone has money and works for a magazine or some shit, and they have the nicest houses, and if there's a financial problem, it is a one-episode arc that then gets solved. But this is a sitcom where everyone is poor and stays poor the whole time.
And everything is dirty.
Everything's gross. Everyone's sad.
Reminds me of how when we did the episode of Everyone Loves Raymond, the big fight in that one amongst the married couple was whether or not he could go on a golf vacation. That's what you're talking about there. There's no financial element at all to that. It was just like, can I take our wealth and go away from the house and
These
the kids?
aren't people that have vacations. Versus Everybody Loves Raymond, which those are people that can argue about anything because they have so much time on their hands.
And hate in their heart.
Yeah, exactly, Spencer. Thank you. Louie says, oh, you don't need any money to place a bet with me, Elaine. You can bet a date on it. Something Louie is constantly trying to get to happen. And Elaine says, no, that's not happening. And he's like, well, how much is it worth? And she finally blurts out $500, thinking there is just no way Louie agrees to this, but he does. Which, again, I don't know how much money that would be in today's, like, couple thousand, probably.
He just needs to get some, man. Danny DeVito needs to get his dick wet.
I would feel like if you're Elaine, that's alarming that the person that you kind of work under is willing to put that much on having a date with you. That would be, you got to get out of there.
Yeah, you got to. They're off. Lot Kid gets the cars ready and finally gets out of the way, and the competition begins. And we see some early night driving scenes around New York. Louie calls Alex over their little walkies, those little cab walkies, to boast about an early lead he has, a pretty significant one. And Alex's problems are about to be confounded because a pair of nuns get in his cab and they cannot decide what movie they want to go see, so Alex can't get the fare started. They don't know whether to see the Muppet movie or the revival of The Sound of Music. I actually really liked this scene.
Muppet movie. The Sound of Music is boring, and yeah, if you like that shit, whatever, it's fine. But Muppet movie's fun. There's music in that. There's singing. There's Muppets.
It always sounds really convincing when you say, it's fine if you like that shit. I know you believe it when you say that.
Yeah, I get it. Christopher Plummer's dancing in a hill.
She spins and the camera zooms in. It's a helicopter, whatever. It's Muppets. Gonzo is not in The Sound of Music.
No, neither is Animal, for God's sake.
Nor Rolf.
No, he's a dog. He's a dog man puppet.
Or what about your Muppet, Dr. Bunsen Honeydew?
I love that guy. He's fucking great. Obviously, I love that guy. This is one of the scenes that happen. Taxi has a lot of these because it's New York. You get a lot of different fares when they start their routes. Like you get nuns in this one. You'll get people from different nations. And this is every episode. And I think that that's something as a kid, a kid in the Midwest, I liked too, watching the show. Just seeing a lot of different cultures and professions represented. And it is pretty funny to see nuns arguing about what movie they want to see.
Yeah, that
it seems
really
very
is.
un-nun-like.
It's such subtle sort of approach they took there, but it does, it's kind of like its own comedy just in the setting itself there. And it's such a small sliver of the episode. And there's so much content and context of that one little thing. It's great.
It took me by surprise because, and I guess this is true, but nuns can go watch movies?
Yeah.
I feel like they should just be nunning all the time, and they're not allowed to go out and do people things.
They
That's
pretty
not
much
right.
just beating people with rulers, right? That's what nuns do, I think.
And yelling about God.
You never hear about them seeing Muppets.
Or being Whoopi Goldberg. That's one thing they can do.
Yeah, singing.
And then
They sing.
being Whoopi Goldberg again, back in the habit.
Mhm.
You get it because nuns live in a habit.
I did not get that until I was embarrassingly old. Alex is frustrated by the nuns because they're costing him time, and he boots them out of the cab. He eventually, though, invites them back in because, I mean, he thinks he's turning into Louie.
Yeah, he realizes what he just did. He kicked nuns out of his
He's
cab.
turning into a real jerk. Louie's beating Alex $100 to $40 at this point. That is pretty bad. And Alex picks up a Chinese businessman who does not know English. And this is the guy from Seinfeld.
Yeah, he's the maitre d'.
For the maitre d' from the Chinese restaurant.
James Hong is
James
the actor's
Hong.
name.
He's also in Big Trouble in Little China, rather. He's in a lot of stuff, especially of this era. This would be very common in New York to have a Chinese fare. If you're a cab driver, I would imagine.
I mean, it's the financial capital of the world at this time, so everybody comes here.
So I really like some of the ways that this scene is played. Alex is really anxious and trying to get everything to hurry up, so he's frustrated. But when he starts talking really loudly at this guy, he backs off and says, "Why am I talking loudly?" Which I immediately liked because usually you just have the American scream without realizing that this isn't going to help comprehension at all. Similarly, he gets handed a business card and starts handing it back like, this is stupid, this is in Chinese, and then immediately looks at it and goes, oh, this is actually helpful. I understand what this means.
It's kind of a self-aware scene where he does the stereotypical
And
stupid
corrects
thing,
himself.
but then realizes, like, wait, why am I talking like Tonto? Like,
Yeah.
this is fine.
Kind of an advanced approach for the 70s.
Yeah, it took me by surprise. It didn't feel really aggressively mean or anything. So
I expected, I was bracing. I was like, this scene is going to be very racist.
Yeah, it's almost like they had an opportunity to kind of ask people who do that, like, why do you do that?
Yeah,
it
what's
makes
the
you
point?
think about it a little bit, although no one who did that would.
And you'd think they probably talked to some cab drivers. I think the impetus for this show, James L. Brooks saw some documentary, I think, about cab drivers.
That sounds fascinating.
Maybe it came
I would
from
watch
that.
it too. With James L. Brooks.
Come to my house, James L. Brooks.
Friend of the podcast, James L. Brooks.
Him and who do we just
Jimmy
say?
Fallon.
Him and Jimmy Fallon.
Which is just a strange combination.
I would be interested in being friends with one of those. It's not Jimmy Fallon. The passenger, James Hong, he offers this massive wad of cash to Alex, clearly not understanding the exchange rate. Alex realizes it's $900. It's enough to destroy Louie right then and there and make the whole shift. He calls Elaine for advice, and she cheers out of joy, which that's the answer he needs. She wants him to keep it. He doesn't, though. And Judd Hirsch plays this the way he should, which is he does the right thing, but he's kind of dejected about doing it.
At first, it seems like he's going to do it. Like he's talked himself into it. He's like, fine, I'm just going to do it.
But once again, Alex is tested and does the right thing. And the passenger, you can tell, is grateful. James Hong shakes his hand, gets out, goes to the airport, whatever he's doing. Elaine calls and goes, you didn't take the money, did you? She knows.
She has prescience. She knows right in that moment. He's finished his fare. Now I need to ask. I will ask both of you, would you keep the money?
Yeah.
Spencer?
I mean, I don't think I do it like Alex could. I would, in my head, I'd be doing the math like, oh my God, this would change my, because it would change that. It's not just the contest. That would change his whole life.
Yeah,
I would think that much money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think about the world in which I wish I could, but you really wouldn't be able to. I don't think you could.
I think I
you
could
couldn't
do it.
finish it. You would have at the end.
This is a super wealthy businessman, and the wealth disparity is so bad. This
You
is
don't
nothing
know
to this
what
guy.
that is. If I went to a foreign country, this couldn't happen to me. If you don't know how much money that really is, then you don't need it.
Yeah, I think I'd wind up taking it.
In
but
reality,
also,
I'm pretty sure I wouldn't, because not for a normal moral reason.
you'd be afraid you got
I don't want
caught.
to get in trouble.
Yeah. No, I think what would happen is I would take it, and then at the end of the day, when I'm trying to do the contest, I would have pocketed $890.
You only leave in what is necessary.
Yeah, so I probably lose the contest, but hey, I have $890 in my pocket.
Pay your rent with that.
That's right.
Probably a few rents in this era, in the late 70s.
Not in current era.
No, you could pay half a rent or something. Continuing the theme, Louie gets what seems to be an easy fare once again. He gets this older crew-cut gentleman, and Louie is just happily circling the block past the UN building where the guy asked to be dropped, smiling the whole time. When the passenger says, hey, you passed where I wanted to be the second time, and Louie goes, whoops, accident. The guy says, no, it is not, and turns out to be with the New York Cab Commission, and accuses Louie of running up the meter on him and makes him pull over.
I guess this is an actual position.
Probably
It
is.
probably
I
would be
like
back
the guy's reveal. It's like he has the intensity of like a bookman type, and the way he does, he seriously reads it just kind of like how you did, Brian, where he actually says like, I don't think so, and then reveals who he is, right? In the same breath.
And he
Perfect.
seems like a guy who would work in this sort of position. Yeah, just like a no-nonsense man.
And my favorite part about this whole scene is how much Louis does not give a fuck.
Doesn't even kind of care about this.
And I mean, technically, he's driving under someone else's license, so it won't come back to him. But
Even though he's their boss. But he doesn't care. He just wants to win this. So when asked for his credentials, he goes ahead and hands this guy's Tony's credentials, which obviously Tony Danza and Danny DeVito do not look the same. And this is what happens when the cab commissioner asks him about that.
It sure doesn't look like your picture. It was taken when I was sick and stupid.
Yeah, this made me laugh out loud when he said it.
Perfect.
And he hits the stupid really hard, too. Louis goes on to call this man's family a bunch of apes, and when it's all over, he simply puts Bobby's license in the window.
yeah, he sees the picture of the guy's kids in his wallet or whatever and says, these are your kids. Yeah, I think I saw him in a chimp act. Now, since this is 1978, that means it might have been Gargantua.
Could have been, yeah, and this guy looks average size, so yeah, it could be involved with that.
Gargantua is almost as big as Danny DeVito. Almost.
No, he would look 7 feet standing next to DeVito.
Yeah.
I really just like how Louis at no point feels any stakes here, and then continues to harass the guy who is already telling him, I'm going to do this, this, and this. It's just so It's so bold of
This
Louie.
is I think the charm of his character in the whole series is that he just does not ever back off anything. He's always a dick.
He throws the ticket that he was just written out the window in like a cutesy way.
And he knows, like, I'm driving for one night. I don't fucking care. He's just trying to win this thing. And, he's a jerk. Louie holds a $40 lead with an hour left, too, and Alex is getting what appears to be his worst fare yet, which is a little old lady with a bunch of bags of groceries.
He's basically given up. He's like, the contest is over. Screw it. I'm just going to help this old lady.
And he's pretty peaceful about it. He's resigned to his fate, just as he is in life. So he's helping the woman get the bags into the cab, and she's telling him what she needs. And it turns out to be a godsend because she needs Alex to drive her all over the 5 boroughs and then back home to New Jersey. She's bringing groceries to all her friends. This is a nice little old lady.
Old lady groceries. What kind of groceries do you think she has? I see a baguette.
Asparagus. There's definitely a baguette. Or maybe there's a marble rye. I know from Seinfeld they have those in New York.
In the 70s, though, I think it was just soup. That's all you could get in the 70s.
Rats.
Some cream for like muscle soreness.
Yeah, Walter Matthau brand soup.
It's very flappy.
Everything's just in a big, bulky paper bag at that time, too. Couldn't do any plastic.
We love those things.
Just canned goods. That's it. Canned food is nasty. I'm just going to say it. There's some canned foods I'll eat, but for the most part, it's so gross.
When you get older, it's you just don't want things out of a can.
No,
as
you
much.
can't really digest it either.
I don't want brined vegetables that were packaged 6 years ago.
It's like your body just finally says, like, enough. I know you did this before, but this is not before any longer.
Now get me some Taco Bell.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Trust me.
Taco Bell in a can. I would do it.
Now
it couldn't be worse.
No, I mean, I'd crack the can open and just dump it down into my gullet.
To be honest, I bet that's all the ingredients come from cans.
Probably,
so,
yeah.
Okay, it makes sense. Even the tortillas, canned tortillas.
Can burrito.
And then the burrito falls out.
Oh, there's the flour tortillas sort of just melted into all of it.
This reminds me of like 10 years ago. I probably told you guys this. I saw an article about a thing that they were trying to market called a burger in a can. And the guy who wrote the article he hadn't tried it, but he was like, I really want to. And I get that premise. It might be terrible,
I bet it's horrible.
I got to try it.
I'd like to try it, but
gotta
it's
give
disgusting.
it a try.
I would be afraid that when I open it, those snakes would pop out. Those.
That's what happens.
Those clown
gag
snakes.
ones,
Yeah.
Except real snakes in this scenario.
Yeah. That'd be pretty metal, though.
Or just a bunch of bees. There's just, this can's full of bees.
Well, because the whole time I'd be like, why do you want me to open this canned burger? That can't be what's really that can't be what that is.
And why did you tell me to point it at my face when I do?
Alex is so fired up because he realizes this fair is going to bring in a lot of money that he plants a big old smooch on this old woman, turns away to get in the driver's seat, but she's not done. She yanks him down into the back seat, which was legitimately pretty funny, this old woman.
It was surprising.
She wants some Judd Hirsch.
Well, I mean, she gets this kiss and her animal instincts kick in.
She thought about it for about 3 seconds. She was like, how do I feel about this? I like this.
I want this. Like, how often am I going to get this young whippersnapper into me?
So is the insinuation that it actually happens? Because they kind of fade out. Like, it doesn't really.
I think this is another one of those sitcom things where they're like, we don't,
Yeah, it's like, whatever.
Yeah. But I think she blew him at least.
And he's, sat on his knees in the back seat with his head back, and she's blowing in the middle of New York City, and nobody bats an eye.
He's got to have his hands behind his head in what we've referred to several times as the BJ position.
Yep.
Louie, while all this old woman stuff is going on, he thinks his final fare is yet another piece of cake because he gets a blind man who is in New York for the very first time in his life. And Louie tries bullshitting the guy once the fare is over.
By increasing the cost by what?
Triple.
Like 4 times almost?
Or
like
4 times.
$6
Yeah.
to 22.
To $22.50. But the man says, I have been counting the clicks the whole time, and the total should only be $6, as Van just said. And Louie is irritated. He's not repentant at all. He's just irritated from the beginning. Louie tries to intimidate the guy, but the guy dishes out a pretty good burn.
I think I better warn you. I happen to be a very big, muscular guy.
Then you must be talking out of your belly button.
Him believing that anyone would think he was, I feel like you really could tell.
You would just know. Well, anyone with Danny DeVito's voice, they may not be as small as him, but they're very much old and crotchety.
Yeah.
Just that, you should have believed
Because
this.
this is what he sounds like at 33.
Right.
And he realizes he's been had even by this blind guy when he's like, yeah, I don't think so. He's like, fine, I'm not. Like, he just gives that up right away.
Gives it up right away. It's a speed game for old DeVito here.
I like how matter of fact the old guy is. It's like, that's how I made it. It's very much like an old radio announcer.
That's how he talks. And Louie is so mad that the guy caught him cheating too. At the end, he says something to the effect of like, and you call yourself handicapped. Like he's mad that a blind guy is capable, which is, a very Louie thing to do. The sun rises. The contest is over, and we're back at the Sunshine Cab Company. Elaine is pretty much comatose as she awaits the results and the possibility of going on a date with Louie, because they know it's going to be close, thanks to that final fare. Jeff is on the chalkboard as the money is counted. See, Jeff has something to do. Louie brought in $212.30, and sensing victory, he sits down next to a very stoic Elaine and starts talking about how warm and thrilling and vulnerable he can be. I did not find this very funny, but James L. Brooks in the audience sure did. He's the guy in 70s sitcoms who laughs like, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's him. He would sit in on his own tapings, and apparently he found this scene really funny.
Huh. Well, he has that distinct laugh, so I guess that really does add to the scene. I'll give him credit for that aspect of it. Yeah, it's not that funny. It's just like I'm forcing myself on a woman and she doesn't want it, but ha ha ha.
And I have a theory when you hear him laugh, because I always had this with the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I think there are scenes that would not be funny to me, but I'm like, he knows this person. There's probably something about this that makes that funnier to him.
Well, and that's often a thing. Like, we can sit back and watch an hour and a half long movie and then really summarize our thoughts on it really quickly. These people sat for 6 months filming this movie, writing this movie. So there's that personal stake in it, and I forget that sometimes.
Yeah, that other level of appreciation that the spectator can't have.
And like James L. Brooks sits around and watches Danny DeVito make jokes every day. He's really close to this person. It's really funny watching him hit the beats on the jokes you wrote.
Yeah, maybe even do a facial tick that you're like, I didn't know he was going to do that.
And Danny DeVito decided, because it's the 70s and everything's dirty, I'll grow out my unibrow because it is in full force today.
He did not care. He could have combed that thing back over. Tony announces, Alex only brought in 197. Good game. It was close.
Okay, first and foremost, yes, we've seen Tony Danza in the background counting the money. I would never,
recount
under
that.
any circumstance, let Tony Danza count my money. Not because I think he's going to steal anything, but because I don't think he can count to 10.
I think in the context of this show, you don't let Tony or Christopher Lloyd count this money.
No.
One of them is going to spend it on drugs. One of them won't count it right. Everyone's very dejected about Alex's loss. Well, except for Louie, who was thrilled. Right up until Alex pulls a big wad of money out of his pocket, and it's his tips. He starts counting them, and Elaine says, wait, tips should absolutely count. The only stated rule was whoever brings back the most money. And she has a real tossed off reading of this when she gets excited, where she just says, tips are money. I've seen them. They are. And it's very, very casual. And I thought that was very funny too. It's like kind of overlapped by some of the other lines.
I didn't even hear that, but that's great.
Louie balks at all of this and says, no, the grand total should only be what the meter said. And I could have made more than 80 cents in tips if I'd known we were getting tips. Alex reveals that he made $40 in tips. That's enough to win if they count it. Bobby says, look, this is a big argument. A lot of money's on the line and a date. We need an objective bystander who did not participate in any of the gambling. There's only one person who could fit that bill, and it turns out to be Latka.
And he's standing here in a grease-covered, filthy mechanic's jumpsuit. But what's he doing? Eating a piece of chicken, a chicken leg.
One chicken leg.
But he has it wrapped in a napkin, and that's my favorite detail, is because Andy Kaufman probably didn't want to get his fingers dirty.
No, that's a very Brian Core move right there.
But also he's wearing this filthy jumpsuit.
Yeah.
Like, this guy wouldn't give a shit if his hands were dirty.
It is kind of a funny juxtaposition.
But him eating one sole chicken leg or whatever is kind of funny.
It is. And Louie approaches him and starts sucking up to him, knowing that he's a dividing vote. And Latka does offer him part of the half-bitten into chicken leg.
You want a bite?
Louie's trying to intimidate and scare Latka, just like he did his blind passenger earlier. Alex hates this and says, Louie, if you do not stop doing this to Latka, the whole contest is off. We'll just give everybody their money back, whatever. And Louie doesn't want this. He wants this date with Elaine especially. So he acts like he's being nice to Latka, being like, no, just use your best judgment, Latka, while he's making throat-slitting and gun gestures with his back to the rest of the staff. And again, the DeVito facial expression, especially during the throat slitting when his eyes go really wide. Pretty great. Latka doesn't want to decide. He confirms, I love you both, Louie and Alex, and I love working here, and then just walks away. But Louie grabs him and says, we need a decision. And it turns out Latka didn't actually even know what they need him to decide. He doesn't know what this is about.
He's like, okay, well, what? What
do I
are we
decide?
talking about?
And after a bunch of people are trying to figure out how to phrase it, Alex just blurts out, "Do tips count?" And Lotka goes, "Of course they do."
Just like a throwaway line. It's great.
And that ends it. And everyone is jumping up and down, counting their money, celebrating. Louie goes back into his little tyrant cage. And it seems like he might be a little conciliatory, but then he tells everyone that he hopes they die, and we go to credits. That's the end.
That was a great finish for
It's
it.
a good fake out because, of course you get that vibe. You're like, oh, it's going to be one of those times he lets his guard down and he shows them that he actually cares about him.
And he announces it too. He's like, hey, everybody, I've got something to say. And then what he has to say is, fuck you.
And that's one of the things that I think, like, we've covered sitcoms even earlier than this. This one doesn't really need the whole thing to end happily, and I do like that.
When they make the final decision, he takes it surprisingly well as it is anyway. Like, he's already gotten all worked up about it. So by the time Lotka says the count, he's like, fuck, whatever.
He's presumably out hundreds and hundreds of
It
dollars.
would have to be just a ton.
Because 500 to Elaine. He said he's spotting
100
like
to
10
Tony.
different people. So yeah, he's probably out $1,500.
He has to
That's
be.
nuts.
Poor Louie.
Maybe he's loaded. Who knows?
He must be.
So that's it for Taxi. So I know what I think, which is it was fun to revisit it. I thought it was very good for its era. I was surprised at a lot of the things it did, and I was thrilled to get to see a lot of these people young in their careers and see what made them stars. I don't hold this up as high as I do the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which I liked more upon revisiting, but I really did enjoy watching it. What did you guys think?
The setting was everything I hoped for when he said it was 70s New York cabbies. That was my favorite part about it. Just the fact that they went straight towards this very unglamorous lifestyle and just showed you the ins and outs of it, like the day-to-day of like blue collar workers sort of at this time period was very appealing. And the fact that as you mentioned, the emphasis on it being a character show and having that kind of appeal where you get a chance to get to know the people. I know that you would have to see at least a good chunk of the show to fully appreciate it. Seeing just this little snapshot of it was enough to get, there's a lot of content, a lot of substance in the show.
It definitely is, and it could be a function of the writing team being overlapping, but I remember Van, when we covered the Mary Tyler Moore Show, when you watch just one time the first episode that we were covering, you're like, I don't like this. Then you watch another one and then rewatch the other one, and you're like, now I get what everybody is. Mm-hmm. Taxi is a lot like that.
If I were to try to do like a measured take on it, I wouldn't say that I necessarily got all the comedy parts of it. It wasn't necessarily super funny, except in its bits where it did work really well, but mostly I just kind of respected it and was like, this is quality.
That's a good way to put it, I respected it more than I laughed at it. I smiled more than I laughed also, that kind of thing.
It's funny you bring up the Mary Tyler Moore Show and how I reacted to it, because literally I reacted the same way, but lesser, because I watched the first episode and I was like, this just doesn't do it for me. Even though I loved every bit about Christopher Lloyd, his performance and his character and everything. But overall, then I watched the second episode and it kind of warmed me up a little bit more to it. So it's really, I wasn't as hated of it in the beginning, but also I didn't recover as much in the end. I do think this is a case of, like you were saying, Spencer, if you've been here the whole time, you probably like these characters more, you're more into it. I don't have the nostalgia factor. I haven't seen these characters. They're not beloved to me. Therefore, this just didn't hit very strong. I get it in a grand scheme of things, and this is not a bad sitcom by any stretch of the imagination, but this is not one I'll probably watch.
Right.
Sure.
Because it just, I don't know, it just didn't hit.
This is a situation too where, and I think we're all in the same ballpark here. Like, I did watch a couple other Mary Tyler Moores after the fact when we covered it, and I might with Taxi, but I might not, because it doesn't quite reach the same heights for me. But when we talk about it, we clearly talk about it with a level of respect we don't with a lot of other older sitcoms we've covered. And I think that's kind of what you talked about, Van. It's like, I get it more than I like it in certain moments. And other older era sitcoms we've covered, it's just like, what on earth? This was popular? You know, and I can't even figure it out.
Well, that wasn't popular.
Well, no. This isn't a sitcom, but like The Waltons was the most popular show on television around when Taxi was on the air.
And we were all kind of befuddled at that.
You know, it's just really bonkers that some of those shows were popular. So it's good to get one where I at least understand too what the deal was, like what it did that was different. And
when it comes to the theme song, you know, at the very beginning of our first episode, I was very kind of critical of it. I actually think it does fit Taxi, because Taxi does tend to hit on the more serious notes occasionally.
Yeah.
And there's sadness involved. For example, Bobby, Jeff Conaway's character, was only in, I think, the first 3 seasons. Then he was written off. His character's supposed to be a struggling actor. Well, then he gets a role. Behind the scenes, Jeff Conaway really struggled with drugs. And apparently that's supposedly why he was written off. He was brought back for a once-off in like season 5 or something or other. Jeff Conaway struggled throughout his whole life with that. He died in, I think, 2011. He was on that celebrity rehab show when it first debuted and was not painted in a pretty light. And I do remember watching this weird Babylon 5 cast, like Comic-Con kind of thing where, you know, all the fans get together and they ask questions or whatever. And there was a woman who was in the 5th season who I don't know, I haven't made it that far in the show. And she was really good friends with Jeff Conaway. And she was in tears because he had recently died close to that Comic-Con, saying, you know, his presentation on Celebrity Rehab was not the real Jeff Conaway. It's all sensationalized. Dr. Drew was doing some nasty stuff.
Shocker.
And they make him go like cold turkey, which is not a good way to get off any sort of drug. So anyway, all this ties back to the fact that Taxi did tackle the serious subjects. Therefore, I think the theme song kind of fits.
Yeah. I think that's kind of my argument is there's an underlying depressive quality to the show. And they did, like, the things that happen to the characters are serious subjects that I think sitcoms 10 years later were not really talking about the same way. Like, they're dirtier subjects.
It's almost like
everyone's
sitcoms,
divorced and has to pay alimony and stuff.
It's like murky and sad.
Yeah, and that's not in the 80s. The Reagan era got rid of that in popular sitcoms.
Sitcoms started in the 50s where they wouldn't show anything. It got to the 70s where they would, and then it disappeared.
The comedy elements, they kind of drew it from, like, these are potentially serious and bad things they're going through, but we can make some of the comedy happen from going through it together. That sort of element, like the characters provide the comedy instead of the circumstances being, this is so fucking funny.
What weird thing are we doing now?
Zany events.
I think it's really identifiable as, like, the three of us have gone through a lot of struggles that, like, you kind of joke and lean on people that you're near, and you don't want to be totally serious all the time, you know, because when your life isn't, you know, pulling back the curtain, none of us have some big fucking thing we're waiting on to happen where it'll all quote unquote work out. You know, we're getting through. And I think that's most people. So I think that taking that away from sitcoms was a mistake because a lot of people watch these things. It's good to have them be more representative of what people really go through.
Like if, for example, Willie Tanner really ran into Alf and how that would upend his life. Instead of a zany manner, he strangles the puppet. Oh, wait, that actually happened.
We have no shows about realistic takes on taking an alien into your home.
And we should. It's about damn time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll have to revisit The Strange Journey of Alan Strange.
Let's do the thing, because you had a comment, Dan, about how the second episode didn't do as much heavy lifting as the Mary Tyler Moore one did for you, but it didn't have to. Did you prefer the second episode? You did.
I did too.
The straight up like duel between the two. I agree.
It was just kind of fun, whereas the other one wasn't as fun.
The setup was much cleaner in the second one. The context of what we were dealing with, it just had a good back and forth, and it just ran so smoothly.
I could have really watched another like 10 minutes of them picking up different people and playing off them.
That was actually just really well done.
Yeah, I like this sort of thing. This show also centers on the workplace a lot. It's and what they do, which I like. That's kind of rare in sitcoms. So I really like this being the extrapolation of that. Like, let's have a cab contest. It's why I picked this one.
Whereas the first one, you're basically saying it was carried by Christopher Lloyd, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't find... I appreciate the efforts, but that one was more leaning on the comedy values than this other one was.
Yeah, and you can tell they're trying to make him in that episode. Like, we know we've added this guy. We've paid him.
Yeah.
So we want to really make him a big character.
It is. It's kind of like, I guess, his origin story. Like, here's how he started with a company.
This is the first half of Deadpool when he gets burned or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I did easily prefer the second one.
It's just better, I think. And you know what would be better is if we had more reviews on Apple Podcasts. So go leave us one and we'll get a tattoo of what?
Nuns watching the Muppet movie.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, wow. That's an amazing tattoo. It's really avant-garde.
It's like the MST3K. You've got the seats and then the nun silhouettes.
Yeah.
And then they're watching the screen.
Not unlike our logo.
And then exactly. But then you look up there and that like lobster Muppet is doing something. And then Kermit's there and maybe Fozzie's telling a hobo joke, because I think that's what all his jokes are, because he's a hobo bear.
He has a bindle.
He does have a bindle.
Yeah,
he's
Statler
homeless.
and Waldorf are in the balcony mocking the whole thing. It sounds pretty good, actually. You can also check us out on YouTube. We're getting the back catalog up there. Thank you, Van, for that. You can go to patreon.com/Bootu Inc. We have bonus episodes. They're free. but you could pay us if you want. So those are some other ways to interact with us. There's other ones too. Just look for us if you think we might be there or we might not be. But you know what? I don't want to talk about that anymore. I'd rather talk about what we'll be talking about next. And Spencer knows that. I don't know that. Van, do you know?
I have no clue. Actually, I can guess.
What is it?
It's the Waltons again.
Oh, I thought it was Aftermash or Caroline in the City.
I do, in fact, know what I will be covering next. And in fact, I attempted to hint at it in the last episode. When you go back and you edit this later, Van, like you do, and Brian, when you're listening to this another time, you'll be like,
it was there.
He knew what he was doing when
Nicolas
he said that.
Cage's character from National Treasure already figured it out.
So, King of the Hill is a Mike Judge show.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do a Mike Judge show. Partly. It's not all Mike Judge. You guys have any guesses?
Is this because of what we were talking about during our last recording? Because is it Beavis and Butthead?
I was hoping it was Beavis and Butthead.
It is not.
Oh, it's okay.
It's more contemporary, and he's only part of it. He's not the entire process.
Oh, it's probably Silicon Valley then.
Yes, it is.
Which I have seen all of.
I didn't know you had. I thought maybe it was going to be something new for both of us.
I have
Dan,
not
you
seen the
it?
final season.
Is this a TJ Miller show?
He's in it.
But it's all the, Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah.
Okay, I've
And,
seen like one episode.
Martin Starr.
I think
Pretty
I
funny.
tried to watch an episode, and it didn't quite get there for me, so I gave up. And this is now going on about 10 years ago, weirdly. We haven't done that many that were kind of new, but not that new like this one, so I thought we'd try this out.
Good.
Makes
And
fun of
it's-
tech bros. That's fun.
It's another comedy, so we'll do a little more sitcom comedy, but something relatively contemporary. It started 2014, I think, and went to 2019, so 6 seasons.
A little newer than Taxi.
Little newer. So this is partially inspired by co-creator Mike Judge's experience as a Silicon Valley engineer in the 1980s. This comedy series follows the misadventures of introverted computer programmer Richard, whose last name is Hendricks, by the way,
Dick Hendricks.
spelled the same way, not with an X, but with a CKS.
Oh, okay.
And his
This is your
brainy
boy.
friends. So this could be us. Like, I'm not an introverted programmer, but me and my last name being Hendricks and my brainy friends could be us as they attempt to strike it rich. And the high-tech gold rush couldn't be us anymore.
Can I be that like dry guy with the glasses?
Yeah, the
long
Martin
hair?
Starr. You kind of look like him a little bit.
I could go for that.
I just went ahead and did the first 2 top-rated episodes that I saw on IMDb. Turns out this is the season finales of 1 and 2.
Oh, wow.
So that way we don't have to do too many recaps of this happened beforehand. We're just going to be end of season 1, end of season 2.
Also, I might be able to be useful in knowing what happened throughout the whole thing.
Are you suggesting normally you're not useful?
Yes.
Show?
Yes, I am.
You can be the Kumail Nanjiani guy because
Yeah.
it's obvious.
Well,
Why?
yeah, I was also in Star Wars.
Beta male.
Well, you were kind
Well,
of.
yeah.
And your version of...
Sure, I've
Sure,
been
sure,
on
sure.
podcasts about it.
Yeah.
All right, so it's season
No,
1.
no, he was Luke Skywalker, Spencer. Did you not know this?
Him and Mark Hamill did it together. Yeah.
No, I believe everyone knows I played Chancellor Valorum.
Season 1, episode 8, optimal tip-to-tip efficiency.
Is this the penis thing?
Yes.
I was going to say, I'm sure there's a joke in there.
Scene and meme.
And then it's Pied Piper, which is the company that Richard...
No, that's Martin Mull. R.I.P.
R.I.P. recently, yeah.
And to a real one.
So Richard's company is Pied Piper. They're competing against Gavin Belson, I guess, at TechCrunch Disrupt.
All of this is correct.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to me just yet.
Gavin's a pretty good tech bro name.
And then the other one, season 2, episode 10, 2 Days of the Condor, which I love because, of course,
Have you guys seen that movie?
the original one?
Yeah, 3 days.
My dad loves that movie.
I
so I've
watched
seen
it like
parts
a
of
year ago, and
It's really good,
it's
right?
really good. I loved it. Robert Redford works for the CIA, and some shit's going down.
They spoof it in Seinfeld with a Newman thing where he's like, listen to me, a mailman you know, maybe even trust will come up to you.
Oh,
that's
that's from
from
that?
that movie, yeah.
Okay.
So the guys wait for a verdict on Pied Piper's fate. An unexpected drama draws a spike in traffic to the live stream. Ehrlich considers his future. Richard struggles to save the future of Pied Piper. All very dramatic, lots of stakes. I don't know anything about the show at all, so I will be having to research the whole thing, and we'll be talking about the highly rated conclusions of season 1 and 2.
So we're going to be taking a trip west to Silicon Valley in the coming weeks.
I think we'll fit in just fine.
You know what we should take there? A taxi.
Subway.
Yeah, it'd be pretty expensive, though.
It'll be a long drive.
Yeah.
One hell of a fare.
I don't know. And imagine what Louie would try and fucking charge us for that shit.
Okay, so if you guys, we have to go on a cross-country cab drive. Cab with one of those two, who are you taking it with? I'm going with Louie. He's so entertaining and mean.
Yeah, but Alex would be quiet.
He's sweet.
Yeah.
And so I could listen to music and not be poked.
You'd get
the whole
bored,
time.
though. You'd want to banter at some point, and Louie would be your guy for that.
I'm going to answer correctly. I'm going to the gym and I'm getting some of those drugs.